Where I want to start is I want to start by talking about esports journalism. Now, I am someone that, has been doing that for a long time. I've been working as, you probably know that about me, I've been working as a journalist for a long time in esports, and I never really saw esports as my final destination. I didn't really want to be here for, 18 years or whatever it's worked out as, and I always wanted to go on and do other things, and that was because I genuinely sort of saw myself as a journalist first, and then the topics I write about sort of secondary, and therefore I always have embodied a certain type of mindset when it comes to the type of work I do, and a certain type of I take the journalistic code very seriously. And as a result, I've done some not insignificant work in the space. I think I've done some pretty good work down the years. I have inarguably transformed the landscape of esports across multiple games and the industry itself. Not a lot of people get to say that, right? And so that is, for me, just a fair and honest appraisal. I'm not trying to self-aggrandize, and I'm never going to be humble about that shit. I take my work serious, and as a result, that, I can look at the good and look at the bad, and I can take the criticism and blah, blah, blah. But I will also toot my own horn because I think it's appropriate. It's a space I've always cared about, and about once a year, I sort of take the temperature of where we're at and do a piece of content around the state of esports journalism. It sort of became a tradition. It's like Carmack used to do it back in the day. And again, I'm not trying to be mean, but back then the standard was nowhere near as high. I was still essentially finding my feet and concentrating on feature articles and gossipy type columns and other interesting ancillary content. I was still getting closer towards becoming, the kind of advocate journalist, the investigative journalist that people probably know me for, and dealing with corruption and helping people get paid and that kind of things. But I do believe I am the guy that can talk about this. I don't think there is a better authority on the state of esports journalism in esports than me. Yes, I do genuinely believe that. I think I've earned that fucking right. I've been nominated for Esports Journalist of the Year every year since the award has been in existence. I've fucking won it twice. I should have already got 3 under my belt. I'm nominated again this year. And personally, I know which colleagues do good work, and I always tell them, and I always support it, and they know. So, there's not many of us. There's a real fucking short line of good journalists in esports, and they all know that I stand with them and will always support them and help them where I can and promote them. And indeed, have done that with Kevin Hitt and James Verge and Jacob Wolf and all these other people down the years. So anyway, tonight we're going to talk about just how there's been this massive backslide, and it's because it's a problem that exists in all aspects of life. People don't want to be good; they want to be famous. They want to be thought of as good without doing the work to get good. It's pretty much there. I mean, if you wanted to distill that 4.5-hour video ranting about CS2, in a capsule summary, it's about that. It's pretty much about that. It's that people are upset the game is different now and hard again, and they're going to have to relearn it. And the bottom line is, whether people would admit it or not, the ultimate online game is one where you just queue up, you win and carry and have fun, and that's the experience every time. Now, it wouldn't be competitive if that was the experience for everybody all of the time, but that's what people want. Nobody wants to grind 10,000 hours at a video game to find out you're just above mediocre, right? Which happens all the time, every day. I see, I play Dota, and in my MMR bracket, I see people with like 8,000, 9,000 games of Dota 2, and they're still dog shit. You know what I mean? It happens all the time, and people don't want that to be their story. So people will always look to take shortcuts. Now, it's fine when we're talking about video games, and it's fine when we're talking about you sneak a little bit on the diet, you put your thumb under the scales, or you pretend you've hit your, whatever it is. The bottom line is, when it comes to journalism, because it affects everybody, it's potentially lead in the water if it's wrong. it has to be treated seriously. It has to be treated with respect and due deference to the craft, because a lie that people believe has this ripple effect of really potentially dangerous ramifications. And look, even when you talk about esports, that's true. You know, for example, the butterfly effect could be, you tell a lie about a person maybe getting a roster move, they don't get that roster move, they lose out on the bag, their career goes to shit, you know, who knows where they end up because they missed this opportunity because of an errant leak or a report. Relationships can break down, or organizations can lose sponsors, people can lose jobs, people can lose, you know, people can get depressed, they can fall into despair. You know, when there's a perception about them that isn't true, it can be incredibly frustrating. It's one of the hardest things to fight. So when you come to the journalistic table, you have to absolutely be sure everything you're putting out there is accurate, because it affects lives. And so, you know, when I do an article about something serious, you better believe I get it right. You know, you better believe that, like, if I'm about to write about somebody who is credibly accused of a sex crime, for example, there is no room for, I heard some allegations. There's no room for that. I'm potentially destroying someone's lives, or potentially uplifting victims. So you've got to get it right. 100%, whether it's roster moves or something more serious. And so that's the energy I've always brought to this job, that I don't want to play God with people's lives, but everybody is entitled to the truth. You know, transparency is important, and the best disinfectant is sunlight, right? These are just some basic mantras that sort of inform the type of work I do. So anyway, I sit and I watch from my ivory tower, right, of king of the journalist, right? And I fucking look at it, and I don't think esports journalism has been in worse shape. It's been a real bad year for it. And outside of one or two people like the Kevin Hitts and the James Fudges of this world, it's really had a massive backslide. And it's sad, you know, it's really sad. And I'm going to talk about that. I mean, first of all, just to set the table in terms of, you know, where we're at. No one's putting money into it anymore, which is a big problem. I don't want to call out my old chums at Deserto, but, you know, I'll be honest. The last conversation we sort of had when I left was, you know, is esports journalism even worth it? Is the juice worth the squeeze? And their sort of sentiment was, maybe you were right, Richard. Maybe the industry sucks and no one's going to pay for anything and it can't really be monetized and it's never as big as it was. Maybe all the things you said have turned out to be true. And in which case, you know, we probably do need to concentrate a bit more on the influencer stuff. And I said, yeah, and, you know, I despise that world. So, you know, it wouldn't make sense to stick around and, you know, write about, you know, fucking article, did Pokemon wear sandals today? Can we see the toes? You know, there's a market for that, clearly, because that article, by the way, would get more clicks than anything I've ever written. And they know what they're doing over there. They're running a successful media company, right? But the type of work I want to do and the type of work esports needs, it can't be. It can't be there. And so Lewis Mira, who's another fantastic journalist who's done some great work this year, he's ended up going back to HLTV. He's actually left Deserto. I think it's been publicly announced by now. Don't think I'm breaking any secrets. And, you know, it's kind of like, wow, yeah, the industry's shrinking. You know, and we're kind of running out of ways to fund. Like James Fudge, the esports advocate, it's all self-funded. Kevin Hitt's been like the solo guy over at Sports Business Journal for like fucking ages now. Jacob Wolf doesn't even want to write about esports anymore. He's had enough, right? We're not in a great space. And the problem is we're not culturally replacing the type of people that you would want to do reporting. You know, we're not getting another James Fudge. We're not getting another Kevin Hitt. We're not getting another Lewis Mira. We're not getting another Jacob Wolf. What we are breeding is an army of Jake Luckies. And that should sort of terrify everyone, because Jake Lucky is a fucking shoot first, ask questions later journalist that, as we'll get into, doesn't even understand the basic tenets of being an influencer, which is his beat. He doesn't even understand it. And I saw so many people like praising, you know, like these guys for their hustle. Hustle is the tiniest part of the job. If you don't bring hustle to your fucking life, if you don't bring hustle to your work, you got fuck all coming here. So hustle's the least of it, by the way. Getting out of bed, sitting over a fucking keyboard, going to a newsroom, Hustle's the last of it. And yeah, you can get ahead by having more than the other guys, but fuck, man, if you ain't got it, you ain't got drive, you ain't gonna do shit. I don't want to hear about hustle and moxie. You know, you should be bringing that to the table anyway. The other issue we've got is a lot of the time the journalists want to be bigger than the story. They want to be bigger than the beat that they cover. Now, listen, I know I've walked all sorts of lines during this time. Like, if I wanted to be Mr. Pure of Heart, you know, I should never have took any casting gigs, any hosting gigs. But, you know, the bottom line is I've got a track record of being able to prove the conflict of interest that represents never informed my reporting. I still wrecked DSL, and I still wrecked DreamHack, and I still wrecked colleagues and friends because I'm just a psycho like that. But I probably shouldn't have took that work. It was a different world back then, but I probably shouldn't have done it, right? You know, and so fair play. I probably haven't been a great role model in that sense. You know, obviously a lot of people associate me with my integrity. If I was 100% pure, that's what I would have done. I would have said, unfortunately, hosting this event compromises my ability to report on you. But there weren't enough revenue streams back then to make a living off esports. You had to be good at everything. You had to be a good talker, a good writer. You know where to look, good sources. But, you know, that's just the truth of it. That's the reality. And by the way, having to pay the bills, never an excuse for anything. So, you know, I hold myself accountable, you know. It's tough. It's always tough. But I'll also just say, you know, I never wanted to be bigger and sort of better than the shit I was writing about. I never wanted to be the fucking king of esports. Never wanted to be like a celebrity or a personality. Never wanted to be on American TV. Never in my wildest dreams would have imagined I got there. And the journalists we get now, they come into it and they think, well, journalism is a vector to that because people have proven it. Thorin and Richard and other people like that have proven there's a through road. And so you end up with these people who hide behind avatars for fucking 2 to 5 years, and then suddenly they get a following, and now they want to do something else. They want to do something else. They want to be a caster, or maybe they want to go work in a different area entirely and move over to Formula One or football or whatever it is, right? They see it as a stepping stone. For me, even though I never thought of it as a final destination, I never sold it short when I was here. But now we've got entire generations of people doing that, as we'll look at. And then also, just the other problem we've got now is, like everything else, there are these Saudi tendrils in the fucking undersoil of our entire esports ecosystem. And I don't know if you know this, but the Saudi Arabian state doesn't have a great track record with journalists, actually. Doesn't really like criticism. And so 2 things are happening. One, like tonight, with Chad skipping out on HLTV confirmed, because apparently they just don't have the internet in Australia. Yeah, Chad's in Australia, so we can't be here for this highly contentious discussion about Saudi Arabia. Right, so again, that's how far that motherfucker's fallen. I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want to hear that I'm being harsh on that guy. He needs to remember what he used to be like and get back to that, because this is pathetic now. This is embarrassing. But I'll say the Saudi tendrils create 2 things, right? And they're this. You're either bought and paid for, or somewhere along the line there's some money coming in, so you can't talk about it, or you're afraid. I mean, no joke. Like, I think a lot of people say it in jest, but I've definitely had some serious feedback that my criticism of the esports washing phenomenon is definitely getting back to the types of ears that might not like it. You know, and so you get the little be careful, you know, which I've had. I had it when I was writing about Russian criminals. I had it when I covered that cryptocurrency kidnapping. Had it with Ukraine and Russia. I've had it. I don't care. I'm just, you know, whatever. Fucking put me out my misery. Go for it. Fine. But you're not going to silence me. You're not taking my tongue out my head before I go. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. And the Kazakhstani mafia were going to brick me to death. How could we forget? So, there's a chilling effect right now on what people can and can't say about Saudi Arabia. And we're gonna get into that today as well, because there are definite issues around HLTV. And let me tell you, that tonight's episode of that podcast really redeemed them, because it would have been entirely negative if they hadn't have gone and done that. And I credit them for asking the types of questions I would have asked. Now, that's all said. So let's go into this like sort of terrible time with examples. And we can start with the funny stuff, and then we'll get into some of the more serious but not quite stuff, and then we'll end on the Saudi stuff. But I'm just going to sort of enlighten you to some of the things that are going on, because you might be insulated against some of it because you don't sort of follow this stuff like I do. Let's start here. We'll issue a vomit warning for this one. This is our old friend Groomsy, Hunter Grooms. He put this tweet out and he said, Jake and I catch a lot of heat for everything we cover, but the amount of media rooms we've seen this year that we're the only ones in reminds me that we actually give a shit about the core of esports and gaming, despite what some people want to say. Fuck the haters. So now the assumption there is, by the way, that's just cards on the table. Jake Lucky and Hunter Grooms haven't broke a single story. They are late to everything. Their day consists of browsing Reddit and their Twitter feeds and then reposting what they see. Which, by the way, that would get you an entry-level intern job at a publication. But I know that for you, unfortunately, this is the end point. This is the end of your journalistic journey. And so you can see they've took this sort of self-aggrandizing picture. Here's an empty press room with Jake Lucky sat in it and with his camera, and God, we worked so bloody hard. Now, there was a ton of replies to this, which is a shame that new Twitter or X.com doesn't show you the replies. But, you know, there's a lot of industry people saying, yeah, go get it, up and at them, keep doing it, you know. But there's also a lot of journalists saying, what the fuck are you talking about, blood? I mean, probably Monty summed it up best, because the implication is that there's no real reason to dislike these two people. Obviously, I've got a very personal reason to dislike Hunter Grooms, and will not hide that fact publicly. I think he's a cunt. I mean, when I say cunt, I mean, there's a spectrum of cunt, isn't it? I really mean the lower end cunt, like actual irredeemable cunt, a soulless cunt at that. But anyway, Monty just said nobody dislikes you because of your hustle. You would dislike because you play fast and loose with facts. If you held yourself to journalistic standards, you might find that people would really like you. And of course, obviously, you know, this is the full problem with their slapdash cut and paste approach to journalism. They repeat claims secondhand without any form of verification. They're very often taking sources that aren't even sources at all. And of course, as I did in an earlier video called Jake Lucky Newsman, which you can see on my YouTube channel, he literally just got hoaxed into a fucking story that he repeated whole cloth. And I've yet to even sort of see any sort of retraction or mea culpa or him holding his hands up and saying, oh my God, how embarrassing, I really need to get back to the drawing board. Because in journalism, you should only get so many chances to be wrong before you are just excommunicated, because it's too important. It's too powerful, this stuff. It's like, it really is people's lives. It really is people's reputations. It's really potentially helping people or hurting them if you get the facts wrong. It's not for everyone. Not everybody can do it and take it seriously and make the personal sacrifices you have to make in order to be a good journalist. Because it ain't worth it, but if you care, you'll do it, and you'll do it properly. So, that was Groomsy. And of course, it went on to LinkedIn. And again, LinkedIn is just a haven of grifters and fucking, you know, tag-alongs. And this guy's, I don't know, Chris Smith, marketing in AI, the latest thing. This is like the Web3 and the crypto and the NFTs. Everyone's an AI expert now. Is esports media in trouble? Lots of layoffs, a severe lack of investigative journalism, and reports of it being hard to monetize. Hunter Grooms and Jake Lucky have become major players in the space without the backing of a media company, with Hunter calling out the haters on Twitter. Top journalists in the market have progressively gone out on their own, like Richard Lewis, who launched his own Substack, which now has over 6,000 subscribers. Now, sadly, this means I have hit rock bottom, because I have just been compared to Hunter Grooms. So I'm doing something very wrong in my life to sort of be here. But I will sort of also say that I went out on my own, not because I couldn't have got opportunities elsewhere, but because there's a community that wants to support the type of work I do, and I believe I owe a debt to that community. It's not the esports community per se. It's not the CS community per se. There's a little enclave of people who, they haven't been worn down by the bullshit, and their standards do matter, and they do give a fuck. And so, you know, give them the opportunity. They're the editorial room now. I don't have to have awkward conversations meetings with editors about, can I say this about Saudi Arabia? Oh no, we're being sponsored by Neon this month. Can I say this? Can I say that? You know, I don't want that. The truth remains the truth, and any sort of stymieing of the facts to make nice bedfellows, which used to happen all the time on my work, it's a historic recurrence, going right back to the days of Heaven Media when ESL tried to squash a story about non-payment of money, which to Heaven Media's credit, they didn't squash it, but they asked the question. They asked if it was a possibility. It's important that I get to do what I get to do unfettered, no one polluting it. And you have to be independent to do that. It's not about money. I could literally walk into a mainstream journalist job tomorrow. I know, I've had interviews, I've thought about it. Anyway, you can see here, there was some replies. Some people, there was the guy from the Gamers group. The dot is fine. George Geddes straight in from the top rope. Major players in the space. They aren't journalists by any stretch of the imagination. Real esports journalists were pushed out because the regular esports fan has the attention span of a child and won't read an article longer than 100 words. George Geddes there, talking from experience. James Fudge, the man, the fudge man, the confectionery man. He says that those two were not journalists and their trip was paid for by Xbox. They were doing content. They were doing hired content, and fucking Hunter Grooms has posted it up there going, look at us working so hard in the newsroom. You mean you got paid to be there? Oh, right, okay. Well, let me tell you, the average newsroom doesn't necessarily work like that. Just for future reference. There's Mark Reed. He's my old boss. Mark Reed from Heaven Media, he says there, Esports Heaven was home to some of the best talent in the industry, Richard Lewis, Corin Cole, Michaeli Lala, and Jacob Wolf, all true. And you can see Kevin hit off the top rope as well. Paid to attend. They are not journalists, they are content creators. Which is a thing, by the way. Total transparency, I can't, on the Esports Awards, I can't ever speak about the journalism because I'm always nominated, so I recuse myself because I take it seriously. And my worry is, you know, if Mark Merrill's getting Lifetime Achievement Awards now, it's a matter of time before Jake Lucky gets a journalist nomination. That's when you know that Rome has really fallen, because in no world would that ever be true. And by the way, he himself says he's not a journalist because this is what they do. Every time they are held accountable for the shit that they do and the stories they get wrong and the people's reputations that they impugn, they turn around and go, I never claimed to be a journalist. But of course you want all the respect of being a journalist, don't you? As I said before, I don't know if you guys caught this, but Jake Lucky has said that, you know, he is the guy who understands influencer culture. He's the guy who reports on that stuff, right? So he did this post. So Jake Lucky has a sponsorship. He has a sponsorship with Thunderpick. Thunderpick are a crypto betting / gambling / casino site, right? And they sponsor a ton of esports properties. They just ran their world championship recently. You might have watched some of the games. Okay, and so one of the great things about Elon Musk's X.com as opposed to old Twitter, community notes aren't just weaponized against Republicans anymore. Community notes are for everyone, and everyone's bullshit's getting called out. And Elon Musk has also said, if you get called out on your community notes, if you get called out on your bullshit, you don't make money from that tweet. Right? So, you know, actually, I don't know, helping stop misinformation. Who knew? So, this is Jake Lucky. Remember, he reports about influencers, right? And he said, this is the 500k Thunderpick CS World Championships. It continues today. Who have you got? Hard to not be eyeing FaZe. And he didn't disclose that not only is he sponsored by Thunderpick, which would be best practice, but this is actually a paid-for tweet by them. This is part of his, what they call in the business, deliverables. When you are sponsored, you have deliverables. Like, for example, NordVPN logo isn't on tonight. We're in renegotiations. My contract with them has expired. We're renegotiating, discussing rates, whether or not they want to come aboard. But one of my deliverables is in every stream that I've ever done with NordVPN logo on, I do a call to action. And I say, go to NordVPN and use my referral code. And they pay for that. And I have to do that every time. It is a deliverable. right? So this is a deliverable and therefore needs to be appropriately stated, especially when you're, by the way, all influencers have to do that. It's an FTC requirement. You must say if you're sponsored by somebody that you promote, right? But when you're a journalist or masquerading as one, maybe it's just a bit more fucking important. And so he got wrecked in the community notes. He said, this is an undisclosed sponsored post. Jake Lucky is paid by Thunderpick to promote the event. Thunderpick, Jake's influence and expertise extends beyond our typical niche, making him a natural fit for Thunderpick's mission to reach the gaming community where they are. And it's a link to the press release announcing him as an ambassador, a paid ambassador for their brand. Now, Jake Lucky scrambled, right? He scrambled and decided, we can edit that, right? Because he got wrecked in the community notes. So he did this. He said, yo, community notes, I'm learning sorry. And if you look now at the tweet that was screenshotted, you can see no community note, and he's acknowledged that it is a hashtag ad. It is a hashtag ad. Now, here's the thing about his apology, right? This is just to let you know where this guy's at, right? As a person. Remember, he knows this stuff because he is the premier reporter on influencer culture. So he must know about FTC regulations, and he must know that you have to declare sponsorships. He must know that. He must know you put hashtag ad on Twitter. How can he not know that, right? Given he is the foremost preeminent expert on influencer culture. Well, interestingly enough, he did the exact same thing again, post-apology. So, this is on the 5th of November. This is on the same day that he's done the other tweet. And the community notes, this links to a tournament ran by gambling site Thunderpick, which Jake Lucky is directly sponsored by, but did not disclose in the post. This is the second time failing to disclose his sponsorship with Thunderpick, as he has had to repost the tweet below with disclosures. Now you go, okay, Richard, like you just had a bad day. It was the 5th of November, right? You know, there's probably a lot of news stories going on, and blah, blah, blah. Let me just take you back to this one, right? So this is before the 5th of November. This is on the 25th of October. And he says, reminder that Ghost Gaming competes for the Canadian WESG spot this weekend at the WESG qualifiers. Thanks to LG Canada, all competitors will get to use the brand new Ultra Gear LG monitors. Check out their monitors here. Now, look, I'm a media student, so, you know, I'm not certain, but that looks like an ad to me. Now, yeah, they're clever these days, aren't they, advertisers? They're clever these days. So, you know, sometimes you don't even know you're seeing an ad. You go, oh, bloody hell, this is just a wonderful, fantastic piece of content. And it was an advertisement the whole fucking time. But I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say that was an ad. Right, and he hasn't done a disclosure, except, right, and sorry, I missed out, 25th of October, 2018, 2018, right, that's the important bit, not the date, right, and so, he did hashtag ad, by the way, 25th of October, 2018, so, he learned about disclosure in 2018, and he's still not doing it today. This is your premier journalist, ladies and gentlemen. This is your premier esports journalist. So what this says to me is that it's a deliberate attempt to obfuscate the sponsorship. So I don't know, man. I might get my little fingers a-typing next weekend, because I don't know if you know, but when I was dealing with all of the fucking skin casino nonsense, I actually got to know people from the FTC. I actually got to know people from law enforcement who were investigating that stuff. I don't know if you remember, but those people, syndicate, etc., for failing to disclose that they owned the site that they promoted in their videos, they got fined for that, quite sizable fines, and had to complete, you know, full disclosure documents and everything else about their finances. Don't know, mate. Seems to me you might want to get your shit straight on this one, because I could maybe not be bothered to fucking do it for every 2-bit piece of shit influencer, because they're all running game, but you are a journalist, sir. That's what that is, the cultural impact you believe you have. So your standards need to be fucking raised. And you will raise them, son. You will. because you are giving a bad name to the few fucking good journalists left in this space. Sort it the fuck out. Not to worry, though, because there was another argument, right, about this failure to disclose. And so it goes right the way through the industry. It's not just little snaky things like this, like not disclosing a fucking sponsorship or the fact the tweets are fucking deliverable. You end up with stuff like this. This is the Esports Insider again. This was the October 26th from this year, not 5 years ago. The Esports Insider, you will remember, are the people that have done those softball interviews with various members of the Saudi Arabian royal family. And it said here, Esports Insider, we sat down with Ralph Reichart following his departure from the ESL Faceit Group to discuss the new Esports World Cup Foundation, his role as CEO, and how he plans to address community concerns regarding the Saudi event, right? So put it this way, by the way, you will notice you're never going to see a Mark Merrill or a Ralph Reichart or any of these people. They're never doing an interview with me. They're never on a panel with Richie Lou because they know what they're going to get. They know it's going to be, I'm going to go Paxman on them. They know that. So if you're the person they call for the interview, you might just be a shill. And I'm talking about you, DigiDay, and Esports Insider, and of course, who shout out one time to the greatest shill journalist ever, Travis Gafford. You might just be the fucking shill that they call to carry water for their bullshit, and in which case, you should have a fucking appraisal of where you are at. So, James Fudge swoops in and he said, as the editor-in-chief of Esports Insider, Tom Daniels should know better than to write an article and not have a disclosure on its recent sponsorship at ESI London from Qiddiya and the Saudi Esports Federation, given that these things are directly tied to the Esports World Cup /PIF. So, I told you last time we were talking about Saudi, about Qiddiya, and how that's going to be a sponsorship because Neom got rebuffed, and so now no one's even really sure what Qiddiya does. They're a big Saudi Arabian real estate company. What's that got to do with esports? How do they make their money? What services do they offer? What's going to be promoted? It doesn't matter. What we can do is we can create a fake layer of abstraction by having the PIF-funded Qiddiya be a sponsor to whatever we want. And maybe if we do get to review the Falcons episode of HLTV confirmed tonight, we'll certainly get into that, because some of those answers didn't quite pass, did they? So, you know when you've been fudged, and you can see here, this is Sam Cook. I like Sam. Sam knows that. Sam is a respected colleague. And he responded and said, should he be disclosing this? The interview wasn't connected whatsoever nor impacted by the event sponsorship. Moreover, SEF wasn't a sponsor, only Qiddiya. Not sure where you got that from. And he said, sorry, IESF, you don't think you should disclose to readers that you took sponsorship money this month from a Saudi government-backed mega entertainment project. We can split hairs about the IESF, even though Faisal has the reins of that too. You'll remember from my coverage, and indeed this article I wrote on the Substack, Prince Faisal has sort of installed himself in a lot of these, what should we call them, international esports federations, because they want to make a run at the Olympics, which is the next part of that, to sort of normalize Saudi Arabian atrocities. And then Sam Cook said, well, a disappointing answer, because he said, no, we shouldn't disclose it if it doesn't impact on the coverage at all. It was a direct Qiddiya if it was a direct Qiddiya announcement, then yes, we would have, but this was not. No need to split hairs here. IESF wasn't involved in the interview story in question. And Fudge was on his Richard Lewis bullshit and just said, and he's right, Qiddiya is funded by the Saudi government through the PIF fund, just as the Esports World Cup Foundation is. So talking to someone from there, Ralph, should include a disclosure to avoid the appearance of impropriety, and there are no answers to that. And of course, James Fudge is right, because look, it's not our fault that there's this deliberate tangled web of Saudi money. It's that way by their design, not ours. So one of the reasons why, when those 12 episodes of Talking Counter were suddenly sponsored, or rather paid for by ESL, out of ESL bank accounts, as part of a Spotify agreement that ESL couldn't hit all the deliverables on because they didn't have an esports podcast, the reason I pointed that out, the reason that I haven't talked to Moses in months, right? I love that little bald dude, you know that. But we're in a weird spot right now because of this. It was the last straw for Chad. Yanko seems to be still cool with it because he texts me every now and then. And, you know, I love those guys, and it's sad. But I called it out publicly because I think you deserve to know that it wasn't, for those 12 episodes, just guys talking about Counter-Strike. They were talking about ESL's business rivals. They were talking about ESL events. So were they offering their genuine opinions? Who knows? The money confuses that matter, and I believe you deserve to know. I don't want you to get lied to. I don't want you to be deceived. I don't want you to make decisions based on not knowing all of the facts, because that can lead to bad outcomes. And I don't care if I'm friends with someone, I inherently don't like deception, unless it's absolutely necessary, unless it's the whitest of white lies to save somebody's life or to give them peace at the end. Otherwise, what are we doing? So those 12 episodes, I sat and I waited and I watched. And during that sponsorship, Gamers 8 happened. And I said, this is it. This is the watershed moment here. This is when I will find out whether I have to say something or not. Because if they are just moderately critical of the Saudi Arabian state, as even Striker was today on HLTV, then there's no need for me to say anything, because I know they're not compromised. But they didn't. They didn't say anything. They didn't mention sports washing. They didn't say that during that event all those immigrants got murdered at the border. They didn't talk about human rights. They didn't talk about gay rights. They didn't say a single thing. Not one word of criticism about the Saudi Arabian state and how it's insidiously taking over esports. And so now I've got to say something, guys. Because it either matters or it doesn't matter. And there's someone in the chat, no, they were not open about being sponsored. They were open about being sponsored by Spotify. They disclosed they were sponsored by Spotify. They never said the money came out of ESL's bank accounts. They even said they weren't sponsored by ESL. They specifically said that, even though ESL released the fucking press release. They got upset about ESL releasing the press release. That's why. They didn't even just not say anything. They obfuscated the truth, and I can't let that go. I can't. So, yeah, bridges got burned on that one. But surely we can all just agree disclosure is good, right? You knowing that is good and important. And so when Esports Insider sits down to interview Ralph Reichart, I think it's very important to know that you have pocketed Saudi money. I think it's very important to know from the same source that is putting money into Ralph Reichardt's pocket. I think it's very important to know that before I sit down and read an interview. But you didn't do it. And I told you what was coming next. What did I say was coming next? Saudi want it all. They're going to bribe the media companies. And it's not going to be called bribery. It's going to be, your media company's in the toilet because digital media's a wasteland. I actually know the director of Kadir, and they're really looking to sponsor an esports pretty heavily. Maybe I can connect you. That's how it gets done. And of course the media companies are going to do it. I'm astounded it hasn't happened to HLTV already. But it is a matter of time. Saudi do not like criticism. They do not like it. They do not want open. You've seen what they do to journalists, for fuck's sake. And let me tell you, they're so weak and spineless in esports that you don't have to threaten them with the bone saw. You just have to offer them a goodie bag. What about next? Well, let me give you another insane new tech for journalism. What about the ultimate grift? So one of the things you learn in journalism, right, I'm sure you've heard this, is if you're going to put down an allegation or an accusation, you just throw in allegedly and then you're legally protected. You just say allegedly did that. Well, I only said allegedly. And one of the things that you can spot immediately, by the way, is that, like, journalists just think that's a panacea. They think it fixes everything. You just put allegedly and it fixes it. And of course it doesn't. You can still be held legally liable for claims made about people that are defamatory and affect their reputation and earnings and all that other stuff if they're false. Putting allegedly just doesn't, you can't just accuse somebody of allegedly being a pedophile and then saying, oh, my bad, shout out to Kingstar. It just doesn't work like that. And so now, right, what people in esports, what all these leakers have been doing, right? What these leakers have been desperately wanting, right? You remember that speech from The Wire about the brown paper bag that Bunny gives? I think it's in season 3 or 4, whichever the one where they set up Amsterdam is. And Bunny gives that fucking speech, right? And he says, what's it, season 5? There's never been a bag for drugs. No, it was 3. Yeah, I thought so. Right. There's never been a bag for drugs, a brown paper bag. And there ain't never been a brown paper bag that if you get a leak wrong, you can get away with it, right? And they've been desperately racking their brains. How are we going to do it? Because we could leak every single rumour that we hear, and you hear loads all the time in esports, because no one can keep their fucking mouth shut about anything. People make stuff up all the time just to appear interesting and connected. It's an industry of liars and fools, right? So what can we do? What can we do? Well, let me tell you guys. Remember all those Pokemon journalists we had? They've gone and they've formed like a Voltron of leakers, and they've made a website together, and it's called Sheep Esports. I think because the original was fucking Wooloo or something. I can't keep up. There's a Wooloo, there's an EV. I don't even know what the rest of them are. There's tons of them now. It's just garbage. Why not Machamp? That's what I say. He's the best Pokemon. But anyway, they've started their own fucking thing, Sheep Esports, and they have found the brown paper bag. They've done it, guys. They can never get a leak wrong, right? Do you know why? Because look how they word it. Verbal agreement, ladies and gentlemen. Sources, I don't even know, I don't care about any of this, but look, they've reached a verbal agreement. A verbal agreement. They have reached a verbal agreement. They've reached a verbal agreement. Go through all of their reports. Every time there's a roster move now, they deliberately frame it as verbal agreement. There's a verbal agreement. All the time, it's just verbal agreements everywhere. Now, why are they doing that? Are these agreements verbal? Did they happen like that? Was it really like a little face-to-face meeting and they said, in principle, we're totally okay with this, and this is as good as a contract, it's a verbal agreement? No, that's not what they're doing. What they're doing is they have invented a way that if for any reason a leak turns out to be wrong, they go, well, it was a verbal agreement. Nothing was ever written down. We explicitly said that. We explicitly said it was just a verbal agreement. And then things changed at the last minute. What can we do? Just a verbal agreement. So they beat the system. They will never get a leak wrong ever again. Not in the eyes of the community, because the community, as we know, are morons. And they are going to let these guys just verbal agreement their way through a bunch of wrong stories. Now remember, this might not seem like it matters, but it definitely matters. Why does it matter? Because these are people's fucking careers. Like, I have done roster leaks. I have done roster moves. Never got one wrong. And so I couldn't jeopardize a deal. I couldn't stop somebody getting the bag somewhere else. They were all locks. Done deals. Remember that phrase for a little bit later on. And that's why I never got one wrong. I don't even think I ever had to say, or it fell apart at the last minute. I waited until the last minute before I hit send and then beat them by that minute. That's what I used to do. Now, I've also heard a bunch of stuff about Wooloo, and Duncan is certainly aware of it as well. We've talked about it. Don't know if that's going to be like a piece of content he might do, or if it's something I'm going to revisit, but I'm not going to get into the specifics. But the idea, by the way, that they're like this sudden fucking Voltron of, we're all the best leakers, let's all get together, and all we'll do is we'll just say it was verbal agreements the whole time. Yeah, nah, I ain't really fucking with that. And the worst part is they've moved into CS now. They're the ones, by the way, who did the, pretty sure they did the Snappy story. But Snappy's got a verbal agreement with Falcons. Let's wait and see, eh? Because now you're swimming outside of your pool. You're getting into deep waters here. You're coming into other territory that isn't your beat, isn't your game, when you know people. So we'll wait and see on that one. But I've got a feeling we might be revisiting. So anyway, let's talk about the rise of the leaker journalist. Now, I thought it was quite funny because I don't know if you saw, but Nell and Overdrive have been tweeting about me. Now, of course, I got them blocked. Let me tell you just a little story about these two dudes. So as you know, right, like, I'll support journalists, and Nell is a journalist, or was. I'm pulling his card. And Overdrive never has been. Overdrive was just a snitch. You understand, right? So let me tell you the difference. Nell actually was a journalist. He used to do reporting. He did it behind an alias for ages until people kicked up a stink and said, yeah, being anonymous and a journalist just doesn't work because there's got to be accountability for when you're wrong. But everybody knows my real name. That was his excuse. Well, we finally fixed that just in time for his standards to drop. But the one thing I've never said about Nell is I never called him a roster leaker. I never said he didn't do good work, even though I think he's a prick, even though I think he's some sort of water carrier for Macron, even though what I think he did to Shiro with the Z thing is despicable. Right? Despicable at that time to jump to a conclusion like that and could have really put him in harm's way. Even though I think all those things, I keep it real. So you did do good journalism, Nell. You were a journalist, okay? But you gone damn fucked up and fallen. And I'm going to show everybody why. And I hope when this gets shown to you, just have a think, mate, because you used to do good work. And even we could disagree personally, but I'll always give props to the work, because that's all that matters, mate. I don't have to like you. That's your legacy out there in the streets. Think about it. Overdrive was a dude who used to just pay to play in teams with pro players because he was too shit to go pro, right? And that's it, really. I mean, that's his story. He's been like an analyst. He's worked at some orgs. I think he worked at Spirit for a bit, right? But at the end of the day, he is not a journalist. He's never really cared about that. What he does do is he just publishes every single fucking rumor he hears uncritically, and everybody pretends he's got a good record because in Russia and the CIS region and Ukraine, he doesn't know his shit. People talk to him. Now, unfortunately, Overdrive said something stupid, and my trigger is stupidity, so I blocked him on Twitter, and he has been crying about it. Him and Nell have basically become my, journalistic exes. They tweet about me all the time, about how I'm a loser, or I've got them blocked, and it's like, guys, listen, so I'll just say this, Overdrive, you especially, as we'll get to, I don't want to date you anymore, bro. I don't want to date you. You're just going to have to stick to, imagining really hard while you're pulling on your little piggly wiggly dick. You're just going to have to think about me, bro, because it's never going to happen. I'm never returning your calls, bro. I'm sorry I hurt you by blocking you on Twitter, but just get over it, bro. That would be my advice, for fucking real. Because when I show tweets like this, you just look like a bitch. You look like a straight bitch. It's, legit pathetic, So this was the one the other day, and I think this is because I went on Maui Snake's podcast. I don't remember what show it was on, but I just basically said, "Oh no, it was my stream." He obviously watches the stream still, so I know you're probably watching right now on a fucking incognito tab. He literally tweeted out so seemingly apropos of nothing because I said, I don't know why HLTV have people like Overdrive on. Just get real journalists on. Right? You are a news program after all. You don't need to get a guy like this on your show and go, oh, well, what I heard was, and because this guy just says anything. This is the guy, by the way, I'm still waiting for it. This is the guy who claimed Neymar was building a super team with fucking Simple and Nico and Munazi and Cold Zera in it. When's that happening, bro? Let me know. But anyway, this is what he came up with. Even the most unreliable insider, because I said Harumi just makes his shit up, which, again, we'll get to that. Even the most unreliable insider gives you more truth than players, their management, or journalists like Richard Clownis. Not doing his best work, right? Richard Clownis. Maybe there's a meme we can workshop in the Discord for that, right? So, listen, I've got a 100% accuracy record. You see me doing roster moves for fucking clout and engagement? Nah, bro, you don't, right? So, what does that tell you? But then, because I put a tweet out about the Nell thing we're going to get to, he also replied to Nell, right? Nell said, I would answer Richard Lewis, but he blocked me. I stand by my reporting. And then Overdrive replied with this. Don't waste your time on this dog shit. He's upset that his time has gone. No one takes him serious. Bro, I brought the biggest story in CS in March, bro. And I don't even have to try. To do these things. It's actually insane. When I dial in on a fucking story, it can always be the biggest story. Do you know what I mean? I've done things more important than CS2 this year. I did the Hunden files. That was hard. You could never do that. you wouldn't even know where to begin because you're a pleb who tweets about roster moves you heard. Or when you sit on your little Discord licking players' asses. That's you, mate. That's never been me. I never needed to do that. I never needed to betray confidences and snitch to fucking get my shit. Like you. So, by the way, not just the Hunden files, all the evil geniuses reporting. How are they doing right now, by the way? Oh, I'm just transforming the esports landscape with meaningful reporting that I'm doing, am I? All right, okay. Well, let me know next time the big roster moves are happening, bro, because that's super important work. It's fucking embarrassing, bro. But, again, just to make it explicit, I'm just not that into you. I'm sorry. You know, rejection can be painful. So anyway, remember, by the way, used to lick my ass as well until I blocked him on Twitter. That's the level of psycho you're dealing with. Now, what's sort of funny is him and Nella got something in common, right? Which is they both think accuracy is super important, right? So you got that here. Who cares if you are a journalist or just a leaker? The main thing is your info correctness. Cool post with cute pictures, but with fake info doesn't make any sense. So I think what he's trying to say there is, if you're right, you're right, and it doesn't matter what you label yourself as. I mean, I've never understood the psychology of just wanting to be a leaker on Twitter. I don't get it. Like, if you want to do real reporting, why not make a job out of it? Why not do something even better than just roster moves? Why not do something that matters? Why not do something important? You know what I mean? But whatever. Like, some people just want Twitter followers, and I don't get that, but it's fine. So, you know, I just went through some of, like, the Overdrive stuff. And, like, Overdrive gets shit wrong all the time, and no one ever talks about it. This was back when Fnatic were making roster moves, and he said there was going to be a minimum of 3 changes in the Fnatic CSGO roster. And then when it was announced, there wasn't a minimum of 3. There were 2, which, as you know, 2 is less than 3. So, and again, he got it wrong, and you had Khan in the replies, and he said, you seem to know more than myself. Impressive. Which, by the way, orgs lie about roster moves all of the time, but rarely will an individual go out and commit to a reply and say, no, you're just totally fucking wrong. Because then you're on the hook for it. If the move happens, you're going to get absolutely crucified. So, yeah, as it turned out, they didn't make 3 roster moves. Now you're going to go, oh, Richard, that's a bit fucking petulant. That's a bit petty. Yeah, maybe. Okay, but then we can do some of the others. There was this. And I know firsthand this one is absolute bullshit. I know this is firsthand it's absolute bullshit. Teams who were interested in Munacy, Liquid, G2, FaZe, Mouse, EG, Complexity, and Fnatic. Oh, yeah. That 600k buyout was super appealing to orgs like EG, who'd already tapped out on fucking signing people. Complexity, who've never had that money to spend. Mouse Sports, who just promote their academy. You know what I mean? The fuck are you talking about? That's just grade A bullshit. That's just like a made up, just for clicks. You're just hoping to get all of them fan bases to click on it. And as I said, like, by the way, got cooked in the replies again because he's a fucking liar. Got cooked. Fucking Twists turned up. Not true. You should double check your sources. Remember, Twist is a good guy. There's no way he's replying like that if there weren't something on it, right? Got absolutely cooked. As the kids say, people post Overdrive's shit on Reddit all the time religiously, and I didn't have a lot of time to sort of go through it all, but I did pick out some. So this is Overdrive's rumour thread taken from his Telegram channel. You have to scroll down to read the translation. And this is where he said, Rops is a done deal, essentially. Rops writes itself. He wanted to leave Mouse for a long time and is joining G2 with Munacy. So I'm still waiting on that one, bro. Accuracy matters, right? So we're still waiting on that one to go through. And because it's the fucking, Russia, CIS, Ukraine, everything he says is in the news as well. Like, everything I say is in their news again today for some reason. And so he had a story here, right? See if you can spot this one for being wrong. According to Overdrive, Insider Overdrive, Vitality are backtracking on plans to change their lineup, meaning the signing of Danish trio Magis Dupree and Zonic is going to end. It's going to collapse. Well, we all know it didn't. We're in the future now. So when's the accountability kicking in? Are we there yet? He said Nexa was joining Na'Vi. That got posted. Right, well, Waiting on that one. Astralis were interested in Valde, but they don't plan to buy him out. Since then, Astralis have gone on record saying they were never interested in Valde. Valde has said, Astralis have never approached me, never been interested in me, and you would have to ask them why. I think it's in Doran's Reflections. So again, when does the wrongness, like, when do we go past, like, how wrong you're allowed to be? Like, I don't get it. I just don't get it, blood. That brings us to, in many ways, the offspring of Overdrive. Like that guy at the start of Prometheus, basically Overdrive had a drink, didn't he? And he like melted, he was all leprous, and he melted into a river, and then something life just slithered out of the river. And that's Harumi. That's who Harumi is, basically. He is one of the worst, most transparently false, constantly wrong, clout-seeking leakers I have ever fucking seen in all of esports. Like, guys, this guy literally says stuff and then just vanishes the tweet. Like, if he's wrong. And he still has like a 50-50 fucking batting average. It is a fucking joke that anyone would give this guy any credit, upload his stuff, follow him on Twitter. If you do, you are objectively an idiot. He's got nothing to say. He doesn't have sources. He's just another guy licking arses, gets told the occasional crumb of something that might be happening, and the rest is guesswork. That's it. I am telling you that. And so here he is. And I thought, like, yeah, we can have a look at some of his stuff. Because, you know, he's got some W's. But remember, the W, as a journalist, the W, i.e. getting the story right, that's the expected outcome, isn't it? But yeah, his bio used to say insider and journalist. He is now just a life enjoyer. In fact, actually, we don't need to go too far into this, but I'll just show you this one from August because it's an absolute banger at how wrong it is. Roster consisting of Cypher, Inters, Modo, Jax, Valde, and Xtaz as coach, Lambert as analyst, have signed contracts with David Beckham's organisation, Guild Esports. TSM out. The next day they officially announced for TSM. At no point had they signed contracts with Guild. At no point. But it's there. And he hasn't even deleted that one. So I don't know. Anyway, I'll get you to the latest. Because we don't need to go over it. I could show you his entire feed, show you his greatest hits. You know, it's just a waste of time. He speculates at the most likely transfer outcomes. Like, do an exercise, guys, if you are interested in this. Next time there's like a roster mania or a team shuffles incoming, take 10 guesses of potential moves and see how many times you're right. Okay? So he did this one. Vitality close to sign Jax, right? Jax from G2. And this one was so egregious in terms of it being absolute bullshit. Apex came out and said, if we don't sign him, he means sign him there, he says say him. If we don't sign him, you pay me 100,000 euros, thanks, right? And so Harumi replied, and if sign, you pay, smiling face with smiling eyes emoji. And then he followed it up with, I'm waiting your Bitcoin address. Smiling face with smiling eyes emoji. Now, we're pretty much at the end, by the way, aren't we? Pretty much at the end of the big roster shake-up. And who Vitality brought in? Oh, yeah. What, it wasn't fucking Jax. And it might not even be a permanent move, but they're using Messi. So I don't know what's going on at all. But I'm going to say this, and this might sound silly, right? But if I was a journalist, which I am, and I publicly said, if I'm wrong about this, I will pay you 100,000 euros, and then I don't do it, I have double fucked myself. How can anything you ever say again be taken seriously? And some people might think that's a stupid point, but he has mega L'd himself there. That's like just disqualifying now. That's like saying, I'll give the money to charity, and then you don't. And then you go, oh, but I pledged it. I just haven't paid it. And as I said, he doesn't give a shit about any of that he's done that. He doesn't care. He'll destroy his own reputation for the clout. He just wants to get his Twitter account to 20,000 followers and then start posting betting tips or whatever the fuck it's going to be with this kid. He doesn't give a fuck about journalism. He doesn't give a fuck about the lives of people he's fucking with by doing shit like this. And he doesn't even care about his own reputation. That's what's insane. Imagine throwing away your own rep like this. So, enter Nell. Nell is the guardian of, like, French esports, even though loads of the players can't stand him and think he's an arsehole. Nell responded to this and said, this isn't true. This story isn't true. And at this point, Nell hasn't fucked up massively. And so, yeah, obviously Nell's right. It's not true. They didn't even talk to him. Jax is not an option for Vitality. I've talked to Harumi in private the other day. Being as accurate as possible is what matters if you call yourself a journalist. Everything needs to be double-checked from different sources. He's right. Oh, he's right, that Nell. He's nailed it there. Hold that thought, obviously. He also made a point publicly over another leak. And this is about the Twist's potential move to Team Liquid. Remember, everyone was saying he's going to Falcons, he's going to Falcons. And then I went on Maui's stream drunk when I heard he's going to Liquid, you know? Like, that was what people were telling me. I don't know, it might be the return of the king. Makes more sense than him going to Falcons. And then lo and behold, and I don't know if someone's done that thing where, oh, if Rich is saying a rumour, I'll just report it as fact. And I'm probably right anyway, because Rich is well sourced, right? It could even be that. But then lo and behold, the next day it's in the fucking... It's in the news, and Nell said, this is why you can't trust some leakers. They are not journalists. And again, Nell is right. Overdrive obviously had to get the scraps off the clout table. Is there any clouty? I'm going, please, you're talking about clout. Can I have some clout? Am I a journalist or a leaker? Smiley face. You're fucking neither. You're fucking just straight out delusional, aren't you? Like, you're just a lunatic. So anyway, Nell responded on Reddit because, you know what? Reddit, who has been lionising this Harumi and bigging up his leaks and bigging up this shit, and Harumi says all sorts of shit. I may as well come and read you a fucking bedtime story. You know what I mean? It's bullshit. There was a thread about it, about Nell's response, calling him out. And he wrote this long post. And it's hilarious in light of what's happened. So hilarious. Like, listen, sometimes, right, you know, a ton of bad stuff's happened to me in life. And you sort of close yourself off to the concept of karma because it would mean I deserve it. But the reason I've entered into this new Zen-like state is, yeah, probably actually. And I'm just riding with it. And eventually, the bad things have to stop, right? Because nobody did that much, surely, right? So I'm just riding with it. And I see things like this, and I think, yeah, you know what? Karma is good. Karma is real, right? So here he is on Reddit. The comment he was replying to was, I agree that Harumi and others who leak things are often hurting the scene because of quick, unverified reporting. But this coming from Nell is like the pot calling the kettle black. He's had more than his fair share of incorrectly reported information when it comes to CS. I think Vitality players still despise him. And of course, the whole Zed Russian signature thing, he tried to attack an individual player about. I understand that somehow this could make him a better person by teaching Harumi, because maybe Nell's changed since, but in my opinion, he should take a back seat on this whole discussion because of his past. Now, I'll say here, I'll stand for Nell here, right? I don't remember a lot of misinformation from Nell. I think he might have got one or two wrong. And as I said, I'm sick of this 100% being the standard. I've had to kill myself to live up to that standard, you dig? It ain't worth it. It really ain't worth it. And you shouldn't expect it. Like, what I've done is insane. Like, you know, you should be allowed to get one or two wrong if they're not malicious, if it's a minor detail. Accuracy is important. You should always strive for it. But it's unrealistic to expect you're going to be right all the fucking time. So I'm just saying, was a good journalist. He was a good reporter. Anyway, you get to this. And man alive, he caught feelings, he took it personal. For those who don't know, because I saw someone in the chat mention it just before I read Nell's comment, for those who don't remember the Z thing, you can go look it up. Obviously, there's a video about it on my YouTube channel. You can go follow that, go pay attention to it. But basically, what happened was, Shiro, Cloud9 were late. Well, not late. They'd submitted their signatures and, you know, months prior to the invasion of Ukraine, I might add. And they'd used some of the default signatures, and one of the default signatures kind of like it recommends is like a little flourish in the signature is, why not put a little squiggle under your name, and the squiggle is sort of like a zigzag, like a Z. Now, the Z symbol during the war became a symbol of pro-Putin support, and that obviously was driving everyone insane, and everyone was on high alert, watching Russians to see if they were making Zs. By the way, shout out to fucking Pure, who fucked it up good and proper, I think it was, over in Dota, literally playing a Ukrainian team and drew a Z on a map during a pause. So that, like, made everybody as well, like, super fucking agitated. And so, anyway, just for the facts of the matter are this. The signatures were submitted prior to the invasion. You think that would just disqualify it? They were designed by a Ukrainian, and Cloud9, as an org, said, we want peace, that you can't condemn the Russian state and go back to Russia. It doesn't fucking work. It's a fucking tyranny, you melts. And you don't demand it of North Korea, and you don't demand it of China, but all of a sudden we have to demand it for Russians. And so we've mistreated Russians horribly and done things that have aged terribly, and now we're all trying to pretend we're not doing it as everyone's appetite for the invasion of Ukraine wades, because 99% of you were just fucking posers wanting social media clout, right? So anyway, what did Nell do? Nell saw a Z, linked it to that previous daughter incident, and then said, oh, Shiro having a Z under his signature is not good, implying it was in some way purposeful, implying that it was somewhere designed to cash in on human suffering. And he just tweeted that out without doing any of the basic research whatsoever. And do you know what I did in 5 minutes? Those all 3 important facts that make his tweet absolute nonsense, I found them out in 5 minutes. That's how little thought he put into that. Not everyone is fit to talk about important topics. Not everyone's mature enough. And I know you're going to say that's rich coming from me, but trust me, there's shit posting, and then there's something you have to have some gravitas for. So he did that. That was what this guy's talking about. And Nell then, even in a later post, apparently he did a typo, and instead of Shiro, he called the player Shito. He said it was a typo. They are next to each other on the keyboard. You decide. And in the end, it was so humiliating for Nell that it's just sat there. It's just a stain on his career. And he self-pities about it. He's never really put his hand up, as we're about to get to, and just said, you know what, I fucked up big time there. I waded into it. We all do it. You waded into a hot topic. You fired off without getting your facts straight, 'cause we're more interested in the engagement or the pat on the back or the dopamine hit of social media, and you didn't have your story straight. Again, people do it every day, and it's fine. You're a journalist. Hold yourself to a better standard. The fact that there hasn't been a lengthy, well-thought-out written apology from you on that topic alone continues to besmirch your reputation, mate. And trust me, even though we're never going to talk face-to-face again, or we're never going to be buddy or coup de la on Twitter, I want to get you back to the light, because good journalists are dropping like flies right now. And I'll take a Nell doing it properly over a Jake Lucky any day of the week. So just get your shit together, brother. Just get your shit together. But anyway, no, here's what he did. He did this post. He said, I know people hate me on Reddit, pity, because of the Shiro thing. But you're clearly inventing stuff when you imply that I'm comparable to Harumi's record. I have over 150 roster reports, maybe more. It's been 7 years, and I have like a 99% track record. Can you give me an example? I know I was wrong once, and it's because of a timing. It was Dennis to Mouse. It was almost done. I reported. He got an offer from Nip a couple of hours before the report. And I remember that one because I think there are not many other examples. Hate me if you want, but don't twist facts. And I have no problem with Vitality and Vitality players. I'm even going to see some of them this week, just saying. And then it goes, quotes, and of course the Russian Z thing. About the Shiro thing, I'm open to talk about it and have a real debate talk. Here is the context. We were 2 months after the start of the war. Everyone is talking about it non-stop. And many Ukrainians on Twitter were mad at Russian players having Z when they didn't have them before. In my tweet, I said, the design change in the Shiro sticker, it wasn't changed, including something that can potentially be interpreted as a Z, a symbol of support for the Ukrainian invasion, is very clumsy, to say the least. You can tell me that it's distasteful. I can understand that. But you can't tell me I try to attack an individual player when I used potentially, interpreted, and clumsy. Ta-da! Verbal fucking agreement. What journalists will do to cloak themselves away from accountability. Isn't it amazing? Or the linguistic trickery they'll do. Wording has a meaning. I'm not accusing. I just think knowing the context at the time, it is clumsy because some people actually interpreted it like that. Because Thorin and Richard Lewis, among others, but they are the biggest voices, jumped on me after that, most people think I attacked him. Well, it's not the case when you read the tweet. They even said that I tried to harm him and was doing that to put his life in danger. No, we didn't say that. We said that was a potential consequence of your actions. Words have meanings, Nell. Keep up. Like, seriously? I'm working on CS for more than 11 years, and I report for like 7 years with an almost perfect track record, and Reddit only remembers the thing about Shiro where I said it was clumsy because some could potentially interpret it as Russian support. Never said it was a Russian support. So now we get to, what is implication? When you're a journalist, what do? You don't fucking just put things out. Remember how they were all chewing me up over the Nip headline? Because the headline said, like, Nip hired a convicted sex offender, right? And it's just a statement of fact. And people were going, but they're making it sound like it's on purpose. And it's like, who would purposefully do that? Like I said, who's like sat around? You know what the company needs, Dan? I don't know, Bill. What have you got in mind? More sex offenders. Like, as if that's fucking going down. What are you talking about? But anyway, so everyone chewed me up over that because they were saying I was doing a journalist trick of implication. And I wasn't, of course. I try to strip implication out of language. And as I made the point at the time, if I said accidentally hired him, meaning that I took Nip's word that they didn't know. I don't know that. Now I'm complicit if that's a lie. So no, I won't say that, actually. You understand? I know the facts, that it happened, and I will tell you the facts. So, what is implication? And so we can read his tweet again. He says, the design changes in the Shiro sticker, including something that can potentially be interpreted as a Z, is very clumsy, to say the least. So first of all, you have implied it has been changed. It wasn't. It was pre-submitted. Second of all, you have brought up the symbol you brought the Z symbol as a show of support for the Ukrainian invasion, and then you have placed that statement adjacent to Shiro's name on a tweet. What do you think happens next? What do you think people are going to infer from that, particularly as you have said he changed it? You are now implying that that was a new idea Shiro suddenly had. Guess what? People did get fucking upset about that, because if you were sat around thinking, well, I know this Ukrainian invasion sucks and there's tens of thousands of people dead right now, but everyone will have my signature in the game if I put a Z on it back home in Russia. That is the implication. There is no getting away from that. So you have to own up to it and just apologise. I don't get why it's hard. You think, I've never had to apologise for inaccurate reporting, but I've had to certainly apologise for doing hurtful and potentially damaging things and jumping in on my size 10s sometime. You take it on the chin, you fucking own it. One of the biggest lies ever told about me is that I can't admit when I'm wrong. I actually consider it explicitly important that I do, because it keeps all the rest of the stuff intact. So I just don't know why you're still trying to defend that. And we never said you tried to harm Shiro, but do you think, with tensions running high, see the news today about a Hamas supporting protester beating an Israeli supporter over the head and killing them? Do you think, with tensions running high on a geopolitical situation like Russia and Ukraine, do you think Shiro going to an event knowing that there could be someone out there who has read only your tweet on the matter and believes he is a pro-Putin sympathizer, do you think that puts him more at risk or less at risk? And the answer to that objectively is more, and that is why you shouldn't have done it. But having done it, that is why you should apologise. But to try and pretend there are no risks involved in that stuff, when people get attacked at events all the time, and when you bring politics to the table, it gets more dangerous. dangerous. I have some insight about that. Because when people were calling me a Nazi for the 6 months I did at Breitbart, that's what people wanted to kill me for then. Not shooty bang bang video game. The death threats were about that. You have got to learn that was irresponsible, and you owe Shiro a fucking apology. And you should want to give it. You should want to restore trust. One day, maybe not now, as we're going to get to, but one day, imagine a world where Shiro needed to reach out to a journalist and he couldn't access, all the others have gone, and the last remaining man was Nell. Imagine, and he really needed the help. It was a contract dispute or something else potentially damaging, and he needed to leak something to the press for his own help, his own well-being. Can he come to you now over this? Would he trust you? No, of course he wouldn't. And you shouldn't want that. I don't like that. When I've criticised players and called them shit at the game, very often they get in the DMs and they catch feelings, and I say, look, it's always about that, and it's just about that, and the door is always open for the important stuff. And that's why you won't see many players on Twitter talking about what a cunt I am, unlike other journalists and pundits in the space. I don't know, man. You should want to be better on this. Anyway, so Nell, I'll just remind you, Nell has been on Harumi shit, rightly so, and we'll all just go back and we'll revisit the tweet, because it's too good. It's too delicious. Right? Being as accurate as possible is what matters if you call yourself a journalist. Everything needs to be double-checked from different sources, right? Great sentiment. We need more of it. And then, one of the biggest stories of the roster mania, right? What's going on with Falcons? Who's going to Falcons? We've all heard the rumours. I just did a stream talking about those rumours. I saw Nell report it. I treated it as gospel because he's right. He has a fantastic record. He really does. And so, on that fateful day, when he said, Nico to join Falcons. Now, I want you to just absorb this paragraph of reporting, right? According to our sources, an agreement has been reached between the iconic Bosnian player, Nikola Niko Kovac, his current organisation G2 Esports, and Falcons. Nico's arrival was solidified after Falcons paid, past tense, the buyout clause of the Bosnian player, a sum measured in millions. This would mark a radical change for the CSGO superstar and could have significant implications for the competitive scene. Right. So, let me then fast forward to what comes next, which is Nico to stay with G2 in shock U-turn. What? I'm pogging! I'm a G2 fan and I'm pogging! Right? What's happened here, guys? Well, let's see. Mira returned, Return of the King to HLTV. Nico has decided to stay with G2. The organisation has announced the last-minute development sees Falcons miss out on one of their major transfer targets as they look to build a world-class team for 2024. It says here, happy to put an end to all the rumours, gossip and speculation. Nico is here to stay at G2, said the general manager, Pekka. As previously mentioned, we are of the firm opinion that he plays an incredibly unique role in our team that would be hard to replace, and we're thrilled to announce we've reached an agreement for him to remain within our team. That's kind of weird, because done deal, done deal, well, I don't know, like, it kind of looks to me like the deal isn't done. But let's also just go back to that report, because that's a cheap shot. Can happen to anyone, last minute change. But I want you to go back to that paragraph and understand why Nell has to correct this. He can't just stand by it. Because details matter. Accuracy matters. Facts matter. It says that an agreement was reached between the player, G2, and Falcons. Right. So let's just look at that bit. So, right, what do we know? We know the deal's broken down, yeah? And we know that the deal was broken down originally because Nico wanted to stay because G2 gave him the bag. We know that, by the way. Nico's been tweeting and saying it's false because Bubsky said, I bet he's the highest paid player in the world right now. And Nico says, you guess false, right? So was there really an agreement between all the parties? Because kind of feel if everyone's in agreement, it just happens, no? All right, okay, interesting. All right, let's go on. Nico's arrival was solidified. It is in no way solid because it didn't happen. After Falcons paid the buyout clause a sum measured in millions. So what you're expected to believe off the back of this report and the subsequent I stand by my reporting from Nell that we're going to look at is Falcons wired millions of euros or dollars, I don't know, whatever the fuck. They wired millions into the account of G2, and then Nico at the last minute went, soz lads, I know the paperwork for all that money and all the international processing fees and all that, and it's in the bank, and G2 probably are already spending it right now. Sorry about that, lads. But I'm out, actually. I made a mistake. I want to stay with Hunter and Munacy. Is that okay? That's what that report says happened. Well, it didn't, did it? They didn't pay the money, did they? They even said today, right, and I'm not saying listen to anything that Falcon CEO said, but he literally said today the problem wasn't the buyout, that they had agreed a buyout, which, spoiler, wasn't millions. It was the same as what G2 paid FaZe, right? So in other words, they were just going to get their money back, right? That's what they said. And again, you know, probably lying, but whatever. But then they said personal terms broke down because Nico wanted too much money. And that's how I know they are fucking fuming, Falcons. They're fuming. Because that CEO said everything to make Nico look bad. They're fuming. Saudis don't like it when you turn them down. There's a reason they love to just write the big checks and then sit there and go, we don't just buy everything, actually. That's exactly what he said, by the way. He goes, we're not going to overpay. LOL! Your entire fucking sports washing premise is based that you overpay. What are you talking about? So you tell me, by the way, which part of personal terms broke down with Nico because he wanted too much money, and they have already paid the money. How's this compatible? Because, listen, I know this is going to blow your fucking mind. You agreed to salary and all the other bullshit first. You go, how much is the buyout? Okay, yeah, we'll do it. What do you want for the money? Okay, right, let's make this deal happen. I'm wiring the money now. It's there, isn't it? It's at that stage. Nell knows this. He reports about football and sports all the time. So why is he standing by this? I don't know. People just want to burn their reputations to the fucking ground. It's so insane to me. Just all you have to do, editor's note. This is the deal subsequently wasn't done, and we made a mistake. The money hadn't been paid. We have altered the story to reflect these details. That's it. Bing. I bet no one in esports even cares. But now you're beating your chest and saying you were right. And you're not. You're objectively not right. You can't stand by that. It didn't fucking happen. It is a literal didn't happen. And you're a journalist. And you're standing by it publicly because you want to be like these clout-seeking leakers. It's actually mental. You've seen Harumi. I'm telling you now, bruv, this is what's going on. You've seen Harumi and Overdrive getting all this attention, and it's driven you wild because you think I do all this good work and Reddit hates me because of the Z thing. And so you have become the exact thing that you're criticising Harumi for, and you can't even see it. This is the tweet he put out. I would answer to Richard Lewis, but he blocked me, obviously. So yeah, I stand by both reports. It was a done deal for everyone involved, but things evolved, and he's been around for enough time to know that happens. Yes, did Falcons pay the money into G2's bank account? Yes, no, because they didn't, and your report said that they did, and that it was a done deal, i.e. meaning irreversible. That's all there is to it. Yes, no. And because the answer is no, and I know you're deliberately doing this, he's obfuscating and saying, oh, people change their mind all the time, bro. The money was in the bank account. You said so. At that point, good luck changing your mind. It costs money to send that amount of money. The millions that it wasn't. I replied to him. He can't reply to me. I have him blocked. It's probably not fair, but life isn't. So you'll just have to suck it up, Buttercup. There it is, right there. Super simple. For your report to be right, Falcons would have had to have transferred the millions you said they had paid into the bank account of G2, and for the deal to be done, irreversible. Is that correct? If it isn't, you need to correct your reporting. This is basic. There's people, like, replying and saying, yeah, but people changed their mind, bro. He said they paid the money. The money was in the bank account. The money was millions. Increasing that looks all fiction. Why would you want to stand by fiction as a journalist? It is mental. It is insane to me that he would do this. But I guess it's just rock bottom after the Z thing. I guess he just doesn't care. He also then followed up and said, like the Simple and Flamey to SK deal, it was a done deal until it wasn't anymore, and it's the same thing. A player, Simple back then, decided to stay with their current team over leaving for a new project. Humans can evolve and change their mind, and it will happen again. Okay, right? Had SK Gaming transferred the money into Navi's account? Nobody ever claimed that. Nobody said that was done. They said, like, literally they went to the fucking airport or something, and then Simple had a last-minute change of heart. Did the money, and remember, by the way, that was when they were both owned by ES4, so it would have just been the same fucking bank account, but just with different names on it. Just like it was a 1 at the end there and a 2 at the end there, right? Did they transfer the money in that instance? No, they didn't, did they? It's insane. It's like literally insane that you are going to triple down on this bullshit. You got one of the big ones wrong. Super embarrassing. Not a good feeling. Never happened to me, of course. But super embarrassing, I get. And I get why you're lashing out. But, brother, hand to God, correct your reporting, and just say, fuck it, I got it wrong. Took my eye off the ball. I said things in the report that were materially false. That's it. Because that money did not touch G2's bank account. And MS Dossery confirmed that tonight. On HLTV confirmed. Everything he said made your report look terrible because G2 hadn't agreed. Nico talked himself out of the bag by asking for a bigger bag than he was entitled to. Even Zonic dogpiled on and said, I don't want players here who were thinking about the money. They made you look like an utter fool. They really fucking made all of that report look completely wrong. All of those key details. So just correct it, dog. It's that's it. Just correct it. I want to show you an example of my own reporting I've done today. I want to put this here because this is how I want to demonstrate this is how you explicitly frame when you don't know if things are going to happen. So there's been a lot going on at Evil Geniuses. As you know, I've been the one guy reporting on it because over in League of Legends, they can't handle the fact that Nicola Point Jameson fucked up. They can't handle that EG went to shit under her watch. They really wanted her to be good. You know what? Spoiler, we all did, but she wasn't. She was pretty ruthless from a corporate world, and she tried to basically militarize a bunch of hippies, essentially, was the project. Esports workers, you know? And she was too egotistical, too narcissistic, thought she knew best for everything. I heard a million anecdotes I can never share about how awful she was to work with. And so I've done all the reporting on it, and here we are now, potentially at the end of Evil Geniuses. There's a lot going on that makes it not look good. So anyway, I talked about this today, obviously caught up with the layoffs, a bunch of layoffs, more likely happening. Maybe the CS team's only got until December. There's a financial restructuring. They've hired some company called Development Specialists Incorporated that I've called up, and I haven't been able to get through to the person handling the account, but they're like basically like they specialize in like liquidations and bankruptcies and other stuff. So it's not good that they're working with them. That's not all they do. I make that explicit in the report. Then there was another headline about like staff complaints where they said the working at EG was like jail with snacks. I caught up on that. Talked about the community backlash over in Rocket League because they basically dropped an influencer that was working with them, a Rocket League commentator. They dropped her from her job saying they weren't going to do the tournaments anymore, then announced the tournaments like 2 weeks later that they were still going to do. So obviously the Rocket League community, you know, they're a bunch of immature kids. You can go and see my video. The Rocket League community is not deranged to get a fucking window into that nightmare. Then there's also rumours that I've been able to substantiate that their Thunderpick sponsorship is just going to peter out. And that's that. And then this is the big one, the LCS slot sale. Now, everybody knows in esports that EG are touting their LCS slot. They won out. They even said in that DigiDay interview, everything's for sale for the right price and a good opportunity, right? So I went out and I have been told by 2 sources now that a deal is done and it's in the works. But that deal could fall through. So look how I framed it. Right? I haven't said the money's been done. I've said it is this publication's understanding that the sale has been a matter of priority for the remaining management team and a deal is in the works. The most likely buyer at this stage, provided a number of checks and agreements are met under the supervision of Riot Games, would be Enthusiast Gaming, the parent company behind the esports brand Luminosity Gaming. The deal isn't done yet, a source familiar with the negotiations told us, but it's quite far along in the process and Enthusiast is currently the preferred buyer. A secondary source stated that there were indeed advanced talks with the buyer, but that the deal had been postponed by them, perhaps as a price negotiating technique. The source wouldn't confirm if it was Enthusiast Gaming or not. Now, do you think I'm worried if the deal doesn't go ahead? Do you think I'm worried? Do you think I'm going to have a sleepless night tonight? You think the ulcer medication's getting out? No, it explicitly says that deal can collapse, and in fact, it's being postponed, potentially as a stalling tactic, and that there's other interested but it couldn't make it clearer, by the way. I haven't said any money's changed hands. You dig? And so that's like a big story that I'm just throwing out there as a throwaway tidbit, because it's not a 100% nailed on guarantee. That's just what is happening in the current state of play right now, and the report reflects that. Now, I know some slick motherfuckers, fans and Nell or whatever, if it's not Luminosity in the LCS slot, if it's not Enthusiast, if it doesn't go ahead, they'll go, look, you got one wrong. I didn't. It's not even close to the same. It's explicit. And this is all you have to do. You just have to be honest. This is what I know. This is what sources can confirm. This is where we are at right now. You know, they used to call them the W's, the where, the whats, the whys, the whens, the hows. That's what you fucking learn at journalism school. And that's what you stick to. And if you stick to it, you can never be wrong. You're never going to say something fucking stupid like, the money's already in the bank account, but now you're having to send it back. What are you talking about? Do not stand by reporting that bad. Don't do it. Don't do it, brother. Honestly, I appeal to you to not do it. I appeal to you to do not quadruple down. Understand. Anyway, we now get to the last part of today's impromptu seminar about the state of journalism. And as you know, I have said on a previous video that I have some concerns about HLTV and the way that they have moderated their forums in regards to the talk around Saudi and sports washing. It was a throwaway comment because it's something I've observed. And you know, if I observe something and if I say it publicly, you know I've got the receipts already. So we are going to be showing my homework. But I'll just show you the reaction because it went on to HLTV. And I got sent a screenshot from someone who's obviously on the fucking rich cord, as we call it. And I get sent this stuff all the time. It's great. I also love the fact that we are now reaching peak Reddit burner allegations. There are so many of you posting the things that, like, I say in a way that I would say them on Reddit right now. I see... we're up to, like, I see, like, about half a dozen Richard Lewis burner allegations a week. It's great. I love it. I love the uncertainty. And never for the real ones. Never for the real ones. You're never getting me. I'm too good. So this was the thread. This was the screenshot I got sent. So I knew I was going to be into a good thing. Richard Lewis about HLTV and sports washing. Is this true? And again, the specific claim is that over on HLTV, whenever there's like threads about Saudi Arabia and its sort of negative influence in the space, the forum threads seem to get deleted. And remember, I've criticised them over the Gamers 8 coverage. Remember, there was only one team that got a fucking profile. It was Falcons. It's only one team, right? None of the other teams in attendance got profiled. They wrote an article saying, Striker did, I think, saying, oh, we usually criticise this format and never give major status to this type of format, but this format's good now, all of a sudden. So I'm on record having criticised them as that. My argument today is made all the weaker by the fantastic job Professor and Stryker did on the podcast episode with Zonic and MS Dossery. I'm sure they both wish they hadn't gone on. And that's the best thing you can ever say as a journalist. So the argument I'm about to make is undercut by you doing good journalism. And then you can see now how, if you just do good work, it all self-regulates. You're insulated from all the criticism. It's crazy. But look, I should also add the caveat. Nomad is, he has a visceral hatred for me that makes him out of his mind. I mean, really, it's crazy because it's predicated on like Cadred versus HLTV bullshit. And it's like, HLTV ain't the site it used to be. You've already sold out. You've already made your money. Cadred doesn't even exist. I don't even know who owns that name, but somebody does, right? And it's like, listen, we can probably get over it now. We're like grown men. Nah, he can't. He viscerally hates me. Like he was super. I think we ended up at some same talking tour. He was viscerally like, you could see he was seething. I thought he saw me one time. It's like, it's crazy how much he hates me. Like a lot of people dislike me, but they don't hate me. This guy hates me. He fucking hates me. And every time someone accidentally uses an HLTV picture, like he was trying to imply that me linking to an article that had an HLTV picture in and the Twitter preview showing the HLTV picture was me taking HLTV's photos. And dude, they threaten to sue you and all sorts of crazy shit with that stuff. They're fucking insane. I've talked a lot as well about, the Danish esports mafia. It's sort of real. And he is very pally with a lot of people that I've kind of like taken down with reports and stuff, back in the day. So he viscerally hates me. And so obviously he's heard me, like, look, he's straight away in there. Richard Lewis talking shit. He's straight in there. Like, he should be so above this, by the way. But he's not. He's like literally, like, you must have made millions off that sale to the site, bro. So, but the minute someone talking shit, he's in there. It's wild as fuck. But anyway, is it true? No, what kind of idiotic conspiracy is this? Why do specific threads get deleted then? What threads, right? Now, I assumed, the reason I kept the screenshot is I assumed that would just get deleted like all the others, right? Because my specific claim is that when it comes to the sports washing stuff around Saudi, it just gets deleted. It just disappears. But to his credit, he left this thread up. Now, he's replied in this thread, right? And again, these are just concerns I'm articulating. Like, why isn't the biggest CS website talking more about the complete takeover by the Saudi Arabian state? Sort of seems to me important. And then you look at HLTV and you see One Expert sponsors them and ESL. You see Sponge works for ESL and does their podcast. And so there's all these ties that I just think would make a generous, a healthy level of curiosity. That's all I want. I just want your curiosity about it all and how it's all going to work and whether it's good or not and what does it mean. Yeah, that would do. But for some reason, it's not there. So you can see he did answer a bunch of stuff. Talks about moderation, deleting the threads. He says, threads are typically deleted when they get derailed. We get accused of being too lightly moderated and too harshly moderated at the same time, which means we probably get it right. Spoiler, your forums are still a nightmare. Then somebody said it's damage control. And he said, what damage? Like, why exactly would we care about sports washing or Saudi Arabia? Please do tell. Now, remember as well, and just for an important bit of context, when CSGO came out, and this is all memory hold now, so you will just have to trust me, HLTV were having a bit of an existential crisis, because it was the end of 1.6. 1.6 has sort of artificially been kept alive with these things. The Arbalete Cups, he was another oil magnate, I believe, from Kazakhstan, and he had a relative that he liked who played Counter-Strike, and so he was persuaded to fund tournaments that he named after himself. That was his gamer handle, Arbalete. There was a fantastic Russian journalist I worked with whose name escapes me. I only remember Dmitry, which is like, just a super popular. It's like, I knew a guy called John. But anyway, he did an incredible... He found out who he was, found out his background, how he made all of the money. And he did a great report on it that we ran on Cadred. And again, everybody got super bent out of shape about it. But just what it is, Anyway, so when CSGO came along, they were super worried because the most important thing about HLTV is the database, and it wasn't a guarantee that they were going to be allowed to have their stats on the servers. They were fucking terrified about not having that feature. They also were worried that if the game sucked and 1.6 people didn't play it or couldn't play it, the casual player, it would kill their site. And so they ran a sustained campaign of like all of these like articles and videos and interviews. And it was just the tone of the coverage was like, CSGO sucks, Valve don't care, we shouldn't play it. They'd interview a player, Zeus from Navi says he'll never touch CSGO. That kind of thing. It's like, listen, you did all that, I assume, because you cared about the health of the esport. And so I hope you can see why your total lack of coverage about something that's potentially harming the health of the esport is kind of conspicuous by its absence. So that's what I'm curious about. Anyway, they bring up the Falcons feature. He says, what feature is that? Someone replies, Nomad doesn't reply. And I get very worried about that, but Striker wades in because a lot of comments were deleted on it. And he said that article has a lot of comments deleted only because the number one post, which apparently got deleted for number one hunting, that's something people do in HLTV. Everyone tries to be the first comment in the post. You get number one next to your name. That's the level of the HLTV reader. But anyway, we've got a bunch of replies under it, none of which had anything to do with criticism about the article itself. As for writing it, I don't know what's dodgy about discussing a facet of the competition I find interesting to write about because it is unique. My niche is always been tournament formats, and this was an interesting one, plain and simple. I'm not sure why I'd be obligated to analyse where it is being held or what that might or might not mean. There's certainly an argument to be made that events such as that have a sports washing aspect to them, but it's not something I have expertise in or am competent enough to write about, and it's not why I got into writing about the game. I write about what engages me and what I find interesting. Similarly, I don't understand this conspiracy theory that somehow the fact that we only wrote a feature about Falcons means anything at all. There was a story behind the team because it had only just gotten put together with some interesting pieces. Now that might all be fair. That might all be fair and valid. But again, these things look terrible, right? That's all I'm saying. When you combine it with the fact that anyone who brings up sports washing gets their threads deleted. But you know what? Again, Striker, he's holding a lot of W's right now. I feel like I'm watching like a baby foal learn to walk, and it's like it's got past the shaky leg stage, and it's now taking tentative steps towards maybe lapping some water from a nearby puddle or eating an apple through a nearby tennis racket. It's great to see. And I've got to say, all joking aside, I'm fucking super happy you're getting on board. You've learnt what conflict of interest it is. You've actually asked difficult questions to someone in an interview setting. You have been transparent in your motivations, and you have admitted the lack of expertise about a topic. These are all massive W's, bro. You're coming on. You've come in a long way. Like, holy shit. So the thread sort of continues. I think somebody says this thread will be deleted, and Nomad says this thread will definitely stay. And that's proof they don't delete threads, right? But I'm going to show you they do. So somebody said, there's no reason HLTV should care or be interested in reporting on sports washing. And he says, what do you want us to report? Who owns what is fairly public? Absolutely isn't, by the way. We just sort of know that there's a bunch of money from Saudi in the form of the Public Investment Fund coming into various entities. Suddenly loads of esports orgs have money. Suddenly Saudi sponsors are sponsoring things they didn't usually sponsor. No, actually, I think there's a definite need for reporting about all of this, but okay, because it's not public or transparent. So what exactly is the issue that we are hiding? And someone says, it's a pretty hopeless reply. It's a matter of public record that Saudi Arabia is pouring money into esports. If the great denizens of HLTV HQ can't see the ethical implications of that, then that simply proves they haven't been looking enough at where the money comes from and what political policies are being enacted by the people who are in charge of the PIF. And then Nomad says, but as you say, it's all out there. If people cared, they can just stop watching ESL events altogether. ESL will go away, and maybe some of the TO will take their place, or they won't. What exactly are you looking for from us? If it was a great big secret who owned ESL and Saudi Arabia was secretly pulling the strings, then yes, there would be something to uncover. But as you said, as you said yourself, it's all public. It's like, journalism isn't just exposing things. Something HLTV has never done. And in fact, used to employ an editor who said roster moves were a waste of time and didn't add value. So I don't know, bro. Seems weird. Anyway, then somebody asked, how does HLTV org finance itself? He says, advertisements. That's not great when you're answering claims about, were those ads sort of advertisements for Falcons? Was it paid coverage? Which you don't explicitly say it isn't. By the way, spoiler, I don't think it was. I think you'd be insane to do that, because if it got out, that would look so bad. Then he said, how much did Falcons pay you to post that? He went, I ran this site for 21 years just to finally get paid for helping Saudi Arabia. It all checks out. I'm pretty rich without Saudi Arabian money. Yeah, because you sold to a gambling collective. That's why. Congrats, but if Saudi had been the first people to come in and buy HLTV, if the Vision Project was going before you got bought by Better Collective, you would have just sold out anyway. Anyway, then somebody says here, get your legal team to watch this. He has heavily implied multiple times that you are being paid to make reports on specific things. Literally just said, I don't think that. I don't. I think you would be insane to be doing that. But when you ignore the elephant in the room, and it's a lie by omission, I just want to know why you're doing that. That's all. And then he said, that is hilarious. The mental gymnastics. Anyway, Richard has had to stick up his ass ever since Cadred wasn't able to compete with us. He isn't worth the effort. See what I mean? This guy is legit insane. It's a 20-year-old beef. He's still big mad about it. It's fucking crazy. It's actually like a mental illness. It's so wild. It has to be. I don't even think about those days at all. At all. It just doesn't matter. Who gives a shit? Fucking hell. So what my point was in the video is you did a lot of flowery coverage around Gamers 8. Didn't mention sports washing. You didn't mention it on the podcast. Congrats on doing it today. Although the word sports washing, I think, was only used once. And I thought you would at least get to 5 times. But still, hard-hitting questions. I don't want to take anything away from you. And as I said, what you did on the podcast today, it does weaken my argument overall. But when he says, what threads? Well, what threads indeed? Let me show you, right? This is one such thread, okay? This was from, I believe, after that thread that you said wouldn't get deleted. So here's the archive of the thread. It's wrong to work for Saudi Arabia, the thread says. Signing and promoting the money of the sort of people that own Falcons is disgusting and immoral. Saudi Arabia is a feudal country, and HLTV's promotion of a Saudi Arabian team owned by the nobility, and hence the state, is a whitewashed attempt to increase the prestige of the country and fix its well-deserved awful reputation. Seems like a good debate about sports washing, right? We should probably have that debate, because again, you don't delete these things. Your words, not mine. What threads, right? So, okay. Let's go to that thread now. All right, it's a 404. Weird. And by the way, the funny thing is, because of how HLTV do their indexing, the titles of the threads don't change. So you can even see what the thread was called. So, okay, that's just one. This is another one. Obviously, I've done a lot of coverage around the Saudi Arabian situation, the Saudi Arabian takeover. Based R. Lewis, the rarest of things, a praise on HLTV. Based R. Lewis. And what does the thread say? Talking about Saudi sports washing and exposing the industry for what it is. Of Jonathan E., that's the head mod, will not have this truth post on his Saudi-sponsored forum, so 404 soon, but please discuss. And you go, well, I mean, last time they were directly called out for it, prior to me saying it in a video and it making its way into the forums. They did let it stay up, so they'll probably do that again this time, right? Except you go to that thread, based R. Lewis, and it's a 404, so that's kind of Kind of disappointing, I guess. This was a negative interpretation of my criticism. Richard Lewis crying about Saudi Arabia. Like, other countries haven't done bad things in the past. Flag probably relevant to his opinion. Let's just shit talk the Arabs again. They have beards and believe in something I don't understand. Of course, I've never even brought up the religious aspects of it. I'm simply talking about the human rights record. And that's all I've ever talked about. And you go, okay, well, this is great. This is an opportunity to dunk on me. So you've got to let that one stand. That's what HLTV do. The hate threads about me always stay up. You go to that thread now. What a surprise. It's a 404. It's sort of weird. Kind of feel that like there's a lot of talk about sports washing and Saudi Arabia getting deleted over there at the moment, which, you definitely said wasn't happening. And you said, what thread? So, hopefully someone will see this. Now, do you remember during Gamers 8 when I told you that they had to edit out, and they deleted the thread on Reddit as well, right? But remember how they were booing, the crowd booed the Israeli players, didn't they? In Vitality and ENTS. And they booed the Vitality players and the Israeli players, and they just changed the sound design of the broadcast to take out the crowd noise so you didn't know it was happening. And everyone was going, wow, the crowd were impeccably behaved. And, of course, all the players were, like, saying, oh, there was booing going on. And then, we better not say that publicly, though, especially not while we're here. There was a thread I noticed at the time because I thought, well, if there's one place I know there's going to be a good discussion about it, it's HLTV forums. So here it was, the Saudi crowd. And it explicitly said, do you want to know why they are booing Vitality? Again, I'm not making these things up. These things objectively happened. Now, I think it would be good if there was a record that occurred. Because remember, we've seen tweets, by the way, from players saying that, well, we had to have a security team. Well, why if it's a paradise? I'm always told. First thing people say, Tyson Fury the other day after his dog shit fight with Ngannou, saying, the one thing I'll say about it is it's super safe here. No crime, zero crime rates. You could probably leave a £50,000 watch on a floor and it would still be there when you got back. It's great, right? Very easy to have a utopia when you oppress people, by the way. But whatever. So why would you need security? Interesting thought. Maybe there were people in the crowd who really objected to them being there. So I think of having a public record of that real thing that really happened, I think that's important. Well, just mysteriously, 404. Well, it's kind of weird. Kind of weird you would delete that one, but okay. This thread, I didn't even get time to archive it because it disappeared. You'll just, again, I don't know, because you can't see the URLs. This is I'll probably, when this goes to YouTube, I'll probably put them all in the description so you can just see for yourself. I'm not just posting the same 404 as a bit. These are all real threads. This one was called HLTV.org Saudi money question. And I didn't get it in time, but I sort of recall that it was like they were asking about, how much money would they spend and where would it stop? It was that kind of question. Let's go to that thread. It's a 404. What about this? This is Saudi Arabia taking over esports, right? Saudi Arabia taking over esports. Let's have a look at this egregious thread. Any ethics among players, media, or talent? I don't know, man. It seems money talks, and they all sold their soul to Satan here. Capitalism in a perfect storm with monarchy. This ain't doing no one no good in this sphere. Everyone putting rocks in the sinking ship for money. The hatred is pretty fucking justified. Might as well be Iran or any other totalitarian state who executes and tortures dissenters. Grow some balls, CS community. I think that's a good point, right? Like, I think it's interesting to sort of know where all of our lines are going to be drawn in the future and what are we going to tolerate, right? It's kind of important, yeah? So, I don't know, you are the premier fucking site. So you can see what that thread was called. You can see again. Link in the chat. Guess what you're going to find, guys? 404. Incredible, I know. Mad how all of this talk about sports washing just disappears from the forums. So, look, at this point, I hope we can sort of say, it's not a conspiracy theory. You are deleting these threads. And I'm just super curious as to why that is happening. There was this one as well. This was also deleted. This was just called HLTV owned by Saudis, ? Because other people are noticing that these threads are disappearing. And they want to know why. Another 404. So this is by no means an exhaustive list. These are just the ones that I just pulled from my search engine going back as far as like September. There's been loads of others. And it's just really weird because, especially with the podcast today, if you want to talk about this shit, just let people talk about this shit. But there's been this censorious effort to basically plug up anyone talking about sports washing and educating themselves about why the Saudi Arabian state does it and creating a groundswell of dissent. And I don't know why that is. I don't know why HLTV would want that to be the case. It happened again as well. There was like a hidden tweet. They were asking questions from the community to ask on the podcast. We now know they ask difficult questions. What are Sonic's views on sports washing? There were some other tough questions there, but specifically the term sports washing, that was the one that got hidden. So, I don't know, my old chum Nomad. I don't know what's going on, bro. I don't know why your mods, because I don't think you're doing it yourself, I don't know why your mods don't want more and more people talking about sports washing. It's fucking crazy to me. It's a very important topic. It's a relevant topic. It's not just a relevant topic in esports. It's a relevant topic in all of sports and entertainment right now. You know? It's like, it's everywhere, the Saudi money. So I don't know, but there it is. Like, Rich don't tell you no lies. It's got fuck all to do with wanting to get one over on HLTV, especially when I literally just tweeted what a fantastic job they did in actually asking some difficult questions, you know? Like, I don't care about the cadre days, bro. That's all fucking you, mate. That's your problem. That ain't mine. So, anyway, when you start adding that to all the other problems we got with journalism, the podcast space being compromised, the tournaments being compromised, coverage sites being sponsored, it just seems crazy to me that we're all sort of sat here tolerating that and nobody's saying anything about it. And then I'm saying things about it. I'm proving that it's happening and I'm getting called a conspiracy theorist. It just seems insane to me. But that's where we are. That's the current state of play in the world of esports journalism. It's not good. It's not going any place good anytime fast. We have a handful of people holding the line. We've got a very hostile Saudi Arabian state influx that want to flood the zone with disinformation by buying everyone. We have a bunch of greedy, spineless, weak executives that are so content to sell out to the Saudi Arabian state, just itching to do it, that they don't want anyone to rock the boat and jeopardize their deals, a la what happened with Neom. And everybody's just taking it on the chin. Nah. Like, enough's enough.